Hey everybody, welcome to Comic Line. I'm Sal.
I'm Ethan.
I'm Ben.
I'm Tiffany.
So I want to talk about something that has come up a lot, particularly in the wake of the New 52/5G era of DC, which is DiDio sat down with, I'm sure, a host of editors to come up with a comprehensive timeline for the DC universe in the comics and establish what happened and what didn't, which is something we've been asking DC to do forever. And
Well, it's real hard because it's a moving target, right? They
right.
keep upending.
Well, that's true, exactly. It's like you can't actually pin down what happened if you keep having a crisis.
Yeah.
So my question is, because I see a lot of people saying like, well, why do they even do this anymore? Like, well, why don't they just do whatever? And I'm like, I love when people just throw out, like, why don't they just throw everything away instead of like having an actual solution? Because they don't
Isn't
have
that what
one.
they said they were going to do with Rebirth, where it's just like, no, it's just like a free-for-all.
They didn't say what Rebirth was. They were just like, we're gonna bring hope back, and there's 10 years missing, and all this vague bullshit.
Yeah.
Our shared universe is worth it, as long as it's done in a respectful manner to the material and the creators.
I agree that they are always worth it. Because without them, anything that happens in a story isn't worth a damn. Because then you just end up with like a Saturday morning cartoon that has episode to episode where there's literally no stakes in anything.
Right.
If there isn't a history behind it, then there's no point in anything.
Yeah.
And so you have to keep that continuity. And if you're going to be a publishing house, which is obviously what we're talking about here.
Yeah, we're talking about comics.
Then you're going to want to see these characters interact with one another. And the fact is, I know you talked about how like you think that like those constraints neuter creativity. I see that sometimes, but honestly, I think it can heighten creativity. I don't know how many times I have been in a situation where I need to put a design together for something, and either I have a time constraint, I have someone's opinion about something constrained, and the end product ends up being stronger for it because I had to work harder for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had to be a better creator.
Yeah.
You're talking about art from adversity.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've always maintained that.
And having to write a story where, well, I want the character to have to go through this, and so this has to happen. It's the only way. Be like, no, there are other ways to find that character to go through something if it's going to be something that affects the entire universe.
Yeah.
And if that's going to be a question for editorial, to be like, well, then we have to make it a whole thing, and everyone has to start writing all this thing, and you all have to get on board.
Not necessarily.
Maybe then you need to change your story and make the
Right.
character go through that arc
Yeah.
in a different manner.
Well, that's
Right.
the
Or
penalty
maybe
of
what you need to
working for
do
it.
is understand what the point is for the character to go through that. Where do you want them to be at the end? Maybe that's not the best way to get
Right.
there. Maybe there's a different way for that character to get there.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's so worth it
Yeah, that we need to make it
that we
bigger, or we need
will
to do
make
something
that
else
happen,
with it.
and
Yeah.
we will do that, and everyone else will pay attention to that because, you know what? Let's do it. Why not?
I've heard that story before a million times, like where they're like, an event came from, one writer had an idea during like the pitch session, and that writer was like, this is where it's gonna end up, and you know, the editor is like, that's actually so big and so cool, like, other creators usually say like, oh, I want to get in on that. Like sometimes they're like, oh, I want to talk about
Right, they
that. Or,
actually
I want to
want
use
to-
that.
yeah.
I want to jump in on that. Can I? And it's like, yeah, I guess so. And then it's like, oh, I got 3 different writers on 4 different franchises. I guess we're just gonna do an event now.
You need editors not just to have control over everything, to look down on it, which I get they're a pain in the ass, and I know that they can like really mess things up creatively sometimes, but they also become the enemy as opposed to having your fellow writer be the enemy.
Yeah,
Your
like,
fellow
oh, so-and-so
creator-
wants to do this.
Yeah, it's like, no. Editorial is in charge of saying I can or cannot do that
Yeah.
because of another writer. I mean, I can guess that it's their problem, but really, that's the face.
Right.
And that's a good face to have,
Yeah.
because then it creates solidarity between the teams, the actual teams that are creating the content. And if something can't happen, the editorial can say like, we can't allow that.
Well, also the editors are supposed to be the people who think about your story from like the balcony. And they can look at it from a bigger perspective and be like, this is gonna, like, to be able
like
to
the refs.
scrutinize.
Yeah.
To be like, that story actually isn't as strong as you think it is because it means so much to you. Like,
Yeah.
their job is to not just balance the creators, but it's also to really regulate your story to a place that it becomes a cohesive, tangible thing that you can sell.
Yeah, but the darker side of that is, you know, I want to tell a story about Spider-Man in his like 30s, married to Mary Jane, and I got editors say, no, like,
I don't want that.
We want love triangles for Spider-Man. Like that's like the darker side.
Right,
of it.
Right.
but
Control.
that's where, in terms of publishing houses, you have the opportunity to go to someone and be like, here's the reason why I'm going to do this story, here's the reasons why I think it's going to sell, and then they'll do a book outside of the continuity where you can make that happen.
Yeah.
The idea of having the shared universe, no okay, neither of the big two have a shared universe without having outliers,
Right,
without
yes.
having an Elseworlds, without having a What If,
They all have
without
one.
having an alternate universe,
Although, I don't
where
know-
it's like,
I don't-
I want to tell this other story. And Image no longer has a shared universe. Like, Image back in the day, sure. But like Image now, everything's a creator-owned story. Like, it's exactly what Image wanted to
There
be
is
in the
no
first
universe
place.
at Image. It's
Right.
No,
just
but
a
like
publishing
that's what they
house.
wanted it to be in the first place, and so Image is actually what it is right now.
Yeah.
Same thing with Boom. Same thing with so many of the other publishing houses
Yeah.
out there. So really, you're only looking at Marvel, DC, and Valiant, and whether or not they could like exist, and whether or not a shared universe can work.
And IDW. I forgot about IDW. They have like all those franchises.
Right.
And they cross over sometimes.
Right.
And it's like, what? But it works because it happens so rarely and because they usually operate without. Like the Ninja Turtles and the Ghostbusters, they are in different universes straight up.
Right.
And they've had 2 crossovers.
Right.
But they usually have to go through a special universal doorway in order to do it. So whatever happens to the Ninja Turtles, the whole world could blow up and it wouldn't affect Ghostbusters.
Yeah. But that's like another way to do it, but you do lose something there in that like part of the fun of Marvel is that you know the characters at any time could just run into each other. They
And-
can't in IDW's like shared universe.
Well, and the fun of all 3 universes is that characters can affect each other. Origins take place for your favorite characters in other people's books. But like, I guess IDW call it a shared multiverse,
Right.
where like they can access each other.
Right.
They can also access,
Well,
I guess, DC and
Technically, Marvel and DC are in a shared multiverse, right?
they
'Cause
are.
they've crossed over.
stuff. Well, multiple times in multiple different ways. Like
Yeah.
Marvel has
Even
crossed over.
inter-company and intra-company.
Well, like Marvel and DC have crossed over characters where it's like, oh, there's a universal portal we got to cross over, and sometimes they have a shared Earth that exists within their
Right,
own
they both-
multiverse.
yeah, like Spider-Man could run into Superman because he knows who Superman is. and
Right.
he
Well, because
read
there's
about him
a
in
there's
the
a
paper the
literal
other day.
Earth in the
Yeah.
DC universe where the Marvel universe exists at the same time. So it is worth it. I guess that's fair.
I
Like,
think it is. I mean, like, I think that.
it's worth the effort.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like, when you have a hero's book and there's no one else in it, sometimes it's lonely,
Well-
especially if they've already had it. So
Yeah.
like now that you have it, it's really difficult to take it away.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't put the
Yeah.
genie back in the bottle
Right,
when
and
you
if
have
you
that.
and if you do, then there's nothing like if you decide you're gonna have a Batman book and like it doesn't matter anymore, everybody's just doing whatever they want, and Superman shows up. There's something less important about that
Yes.
Yep.
because it doesn't matter. You didn't have to figure it out. You didn't have to like either say this isn't in continuity or say that it is in continuity and here's how it happened.
And there's no tension either because anything could happen to Superman. You know he's gonna be fine because it doesn't. Because
Because
not,
it-
it's
he's
not
got his
even.
own book over
Superman
there.
could literally
Yeah.
die there and it wouldn't mean anything.
It's not even the
because-
real Superman.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so like I feel like that just weakens like the importance of events and character growth and pretty much anything that happens in those universes without having it.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean-
if Batman and Superman aren't friends,
Yeah.
or if you just know that they're friends because they showed up and said they were friends, it's very different than if you know their friendship because you remember reading about it.
Yeah.
And how many adventures they've been on together.
Yeah.
You've experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's where like the difference is between like where like companies like Boom and Image are right now, where they're just telling stories that are within their own little like
Yeah.
Tiny
each,
little-
each book has their own
little
thing.
bucket there because it's like a lot of character development and you know incredible things can happen there, but nobody's crossing over.
No.
So like that's not what you're worried about. You're literally just worrying about the storyline.
Yeah,
And so if
right.
a character dies there, yeah,
Whatever.
that's important. Like
Yeah.
that means something to there, but not over there because they're not even remotely connected.
No,
so.
and you wouldn't even want them anyway.
No,
Like,
you wouldn't.
like, you don't want to see Saga and whatever crossover. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Well, that becomes a tricky situation. When DC started off, was it a shared universe?
No.
Precisely.
Right.
I'm assuming at some point they just said, wouldn't
Put
it
'em all
boost
together.
sales
Wouldn't
if
it be
like
fun
we saw
if-
these
yeah.
two characters meet and said hi and be
Definitely, it
friends?
did not come from a story perspective.
Right,
It did not
I'm
come from a
sure.
like, wouldn't it be wonderful and enriching for everyone?
Yeah, but
Right.
but once you do it, you kind of realize.
Yeah, that
Once
there
you
actually
do
is
it,
more
that's
story
fun.
You
potential.
can't go back.
No,
Right.
Yeah.
but when you were only publishing like a smaller amount of books,
Yeah,
Like-
Valiant does.
yeah, you could not have to worry. I mean, like it makes it easier to have a shared universe. But if you didn't have a shared universe, it wasn't so important necessarily.
Right.
Because you're only publishing a few books. Now you have all these characters, and a lot of these characters came from other books or other characters, like either like a spin-off or something like that. They clearly live in that universe.
Yes.
They clearly have to be a part of that book now. You know, like you can't go back.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
it.
Don't worry, Walking Dead and Saga are gonna cross over.
Yeah.
Well, no. All right, so here's the thing. Can you make it work if Saga literally visits a different planet and it's Walking Dead?
And it
Earth.
is Earth.
It's Earth, and
it's
there's been
the
a zombie
DC
apocalypse.
It's the DC multiverse
Right.
idea of like it's just a different Earth with a different timeline,
Right.
and you can go there.
No, we're not doing that.
That would
No,
like,
that-
it
and-
wouldn't work thematically.
Regardless of that, the issue is that too many people would die because Saga has no problem just killing off characters.
That's true. They'd land on
We're
Earth
not
and everyone
doing
would
that.
die. Plus, then like the virus would then spread throughout the Saga universe.
No!
If you tell a good enough story,
Right. Yeah.
Is it okay?
worth it?
I think that comes down to the you were so worried about if you could.
You didn't stop.
Something you should, yeah.
Yeah.
and there it is. There. Now
you're
you've got
selling
grunge and bone and spawn, and
You're
they're all
selling
there.
it. You want to sell it.
You want to sell it? You want to make Alana a zombie? Well, there it is. Like no.
there it is.
But is that gonna work? And it's like,
Well,
but why doesn't that?
that's
But wait a
probably
minute. Whoa. Excuse me. Because why wouldn't that work? Why wouldn't that work? Like, and it's like
I think this is why people sometimes complain, though, because they'll say, like, well, if you take Spider-Man and you like shove him into what's happening over here in Moon Knight,
Right.
they're totally different, and you're ruining my Moon Knight story by putting all this Spider-Man crap in there.
Yes.
And I understand that. Like, I
Right.
get that. You're reading an adventure,
Yes.
and it's going in a direction, and
then-
then this other dude who's totally different and doesn't act like anybody else in your story comes in because they're trying to promote some friggin' event. Like,
Yes.
that is annoying.
Yeah.
And I totally get that.
So here's a question then. Is there a difference between a shared universe and a crossover event? And does a crossover event imply a shared universe, or can it just be the meeting of two different companies and titles or ideas or franchises?
we've had both.
Exactly.
We've had both. Like literally, the first Marvel DC crossovers all took place in their own Earth, like the Earth of that thing.
The
Like,
crossover Earth?
The crossover Earth, where
Right.
those two universes already existed together.
Right.
And they told like Batman, Hulk, and Titans, X-Men, and Superman,
Yeah,
and
they all
Spider-Man.
had
Like,
heard of each
they all
other
knew each
and-
other and
yeah.
just coincidentally never crossed over at any point until just now,
Right.
despite like their
Or-
decades.
or
of
they
history.
did,
Or they did, and
because-
we just don't know because they
We
meet
didn't
for the
see
first
all
Oh,
time.
and they say like, "Oh, I'm meeting you for the first
They
time."
literally
That's right.
usually do. Because you have to, because they are meeting for the first time, and we as the reader, I don't know how narratively satisfying it would be if you picked up the first major intercompany crossover to Spider-Man and Superman, and they're like, "What's up? You again, huh?" Like, no, that's not nearly as exciting as seeing them fight and then having them shake
gotta
hands.
fight.
Well, they have to fight because,
Yeah.
like, you gotta have
Because it's a trope.
who's gonna win.
So we got to put their powers up against.
Yeah.
To circle back to that Spider-Man and Moon Knight thing,
Yeah,
Right,
to get us back
which
on
did
track,
happen, I think, in
Yeah,
like
of
Moon Knight
course.
4 or whatever.
I think that's also a sign of a weak writer if they can't make it work.
Well, unless the editor tells them you gotta put
You got to
Spider-Man.
put
That's
them in
the
there,
thing.
but you can still like
You can make it work though. Like,
You are writing for a company, so you're accepting that like that's going to happen. So you kind of have to deal with it.
Yeah,
And if
like,
you can't,
if
like
the-
that's kind of on you.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
if that comes and you're like, all right, I got Spider-Man, he's quippy, whatever, and now he's dealing with this. You know what? I'm not going to change how Moon Knight is. It's not from Spider-Man's perspective.
Right.
It's going to be from Moon Knight's perspective. So
Right.
maybe Spider-Man's a little off because we're not seeing it from
Yeah.
like Spider-Man's book.
And I think that's where a lot of people might have issues where they're saying like, but that's not Spider-Man. You're not making the Spider-Man that I read every day.
right, you put him on the cover, I'm gonna buy it because obviously I'm a big Spider-Man
Yeah, well,
fan.
you're
Like,
making. I'm a completist, so I got to go read that Moon Knight book, even though I know
It's
that
not gonna
nothing's going
be
to
like-
happen.
Yeah.
That's going to be important in my series.
Well, shouldn't it
And
be?
like-
It's a shared universe.
And you made him a chump. How dare you?
Yeah.
That's not Spider-Man.
Well, that's Howard the Duck. Or like in that Moon Knight series by Charlie Houston, they had to make it a tie-in with Civil War because like everything was.
Yeah.
And Captain America is on the cover of one of them. And the issue, because Charlie Houston was a good writer, was like, here's something fun. They told me I have to make a Civil War tie-in. He has Moon Knight like call Captain America an asshole and Captain America leaves, but not before saying don't be in Civil War. And you're like, that's amazing because that was a fun issue. It did drive the plot forward within the beginning of it, and you still got what the cover promised.
Yeah.
And that's like a perfect blend. Like that's a shared universe. Like that
That's-
works.
what it
That's
works.
a good writer.
That's a
It's
good writer.
who was like, okay. But again, we're watching a writer put into constraints who comes out with something really strong.
Yeah, because you still have that
It
moment.
doesn't always work that way,
And
and,
every-
sometimes a writer just needs to tell the story they want to tell, but sometimes
Yeah.
it crystallizes really nicely.
Yeah, well, and you have that history now so that when you do have Captain America and Moon Knight meet again in the future, you have that history so you can draw back on that cool moment
Yep.
and be like, hey, Cap doesn't like Moon Knight. Haha.
So I think sometimes the issue with a shared universe is that there are responsibilities that everyone has.
Yes.
The reader has the responsibility to understand that if you want your character, like, we're just picking on Moon Knight right now.
Sure.
If you want Moon Knight to live in the Marvel Universe, then you have to accept the fact that sometimes other characters are going to be in that book.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, then anyone could publish Moon Knight, and what do you care?
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, I'm sorry, you're not going to get a show.
Right. Yeah, they're not going to make that.
You know what I
show.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you want, whatever character it is, insert that. You have to accept that.
Yeah.
On the publisher side, they need to take responsibility to actually be beholden to their continuity
Right.
and to remember it and to hire people who are there to work on that and to do that. Because if you start playing fast and loose with it, then you lose the respect of those who are like believing in your shared universe because now they don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
And like, you have to accept the fact that some of these stories are going to have to live outside of continuity, and you have to tell them that.
Yes.
And like, I think it's just literally just
clear.
you
Yeah.
just need to like keep these rules. And I'm not saying it's easy. Keeping all this crap like
Straight?
is not an easy job.
Well, and it's also not easy because then, like, let's say you have like a continuity director, which is not what the name of that person usually is, but like, let's say
We're
that like
giving them a
we have
job description.
Yeah, we have a special person at like at the big two, who does he's like an editor. He or she is like an editor who like is just overseeing the continuity and has to come in. Like, they get a script for every book. And they go through it, and they basically okay it, kind of like the Comics Code Authority, where it's like, put it through the meat grinder, make sure it doesn't have any penises in it or something.
Right.
And it's like, okay, fine. So they get this, but then you have like Grant Morrison, and you want to publish that Grant Morrison book, and you want him on a JLA book because it's going to matter, and people are going to know that, and you want to capitalize
You're going
on
to sell a lot of books.
and you capitalize on the fact that fans are going to be like, ooh, Grant Morrison's doing this. Not only is it going to be a satisfying story, but it's also going to matter because it's in this main book. But if it's going to matter, then it has to go through the continuity director, and Grant Morrison's going to be like, no!
Right.
And you as the publisher are going to be like, I have to placate Morrison by marginalizing the director, so I'm going to take out the teeth of the director and say, like, well, you really do have the final word unless it's someone as important as this.
Right.
Oh, I'm also going to do that and send a message to my bullpen that says none of you are as important as Grant Morris, and like that's a real
a
like
problem.
tightrope to walk.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a fundamental issue with how you approach a big name like that. Then you can't just say do whatever you want.
No.
You need to be like, hey,
If you want to write
If you're
this,
going to do it, if you're going to do the shared universe, don't let that happen.
Right.
And
But
tell
how-
the guy, you're not going to write this book unless you write it under our rules. But then,
That's a problem because money.
well, yeah, he'll
I
take his
want it.
toys and
Right,
go
but
home, and
if
I don't
you
want him
want-
to. I want him to sell this book.
right.
Right, but I mean, I think there's a way to do it where it's like you loosen the rules a little bit for certain people, but you don't break them entirely.
Yeah.
Like they bend, but they don't break. Where you go like, listen,
Be
Grant,
realistic. Like, we are going to let Grant Morrison kind of do
I
most
know,
of what he
but I mean,
wants.
like,
but
listen,
I'm saying like that's like the attitude to
Grant,
have.
at the end of the day, these characters need to end up like this. And what you're pitching me right now, I'm seeing a few issues. Is there any way we could work on X, Y, Z and really come at it like they do with like, getting things past a movie thing? Like try to push them a little bit and then concede a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Be like, push them too far and then be like, okay, you know what? We'll let these two go, but this we got to.
We really got to put the hammer down on that one.
maybe then, is it a job? Should it be an
Superman?
actual job? Superman? What?
I said for Superman?
For Superman. It's a job for Superman. 'Cause he's Is it a job, and should it be a job for someone to be a continuity director where they actually publish something that says, this is how this book or all of these books tie in? Maybe it's not straightforward, but maybe it's kind of like a newsreel, like you're just catching up on what's happening in the universe.
They kind of used to do stuff like that where they would like catch you up on like where characters were and like
Yeah.
these little bio
have
magazine
those.
kind of things
Oh,
where
yeah,
it's like,
those.
hey, here's what's kind of going on with this character right now.
Yeah, and when you get like an individual issue, at least at Marvel, there's a context page, but that's only for that character in that
Yeah,
universe.
that doesn't really like, explain everything else that's going on around them. And like, what if they were in like if Spider-Man was in Fantastic Four? We don't necessarily know about that unless
Right.
unless this issue pertains to that. Because really, that continuity page is to explain what's going to happen in the next few pages.
Yeah, and also like, do I really have to contextualize everything for every new reader every single time? Because like, not only is that going to be a task no one's going to want to do, but also it's going to be detrimental to the sales of previous books because now I don't need to read those because I have this context that like has been given. Like now, what you could say is
that, but at the same time, the story doesn't lose its impact just because now I can just grab
No, it's true.
the
But-
3 sentence.
yeah, no, I
There
agree.
are
But
people who
we're talking
will
about comic book
reason that way.
readers.
That's right. Yeah, like they'll say like, well, I don't need to pick up that book because even though
I hear it
we
way
would
too
say
much.
that's ridiculous because there's many
There's a
valuable
story in
things in
there?
that book that you should read anyway. There's a lot of people who are gonna be like, no, I just want to know what happened.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I would love to see something that explains like what the hell is happening.
Well, and hey,
Yeah.
you know what? If you want to meet me in the like halfway, do that and cite the damn thing. which is what they
yes.
used to do
Right. Yeah.
in comics when you'd read a thing and you'd be
At
like,
least
oh no!
advertise the book where I can figure out what's happening.
Well, they did that all the time, especially at Marvel, where it would like you'd see a character refer to something offhandedly, and there'd be an editor's note that cites where to get the next issue, and they didn't give you anything else, just where to get it. See, and that's all you need.
I don't like that.
That's why they stopped
but
doing
that's
it.
the answer to what you're saying.
Because people were like, well, I don't want to have to read all this other crap. So
No,
they
no,
just
it's
took out
not that
the-
I don't want to have to read it. It's
Yeah.
the fact that suddenly I'm being thrown something that I don't understand,
Yeah.
and it's just saying, don't worry, it's explained in this other book.
No, but like,
but that's
usually
because-
it's just because like a character's naturally referring to something that they would refer to instead of awkwardly dancing around it as if that
Yeah.
issue didn't happen.
So
Right.
I would rather have it be that, like, no, there's a document or there's something that I can go to be like, wait, how can I look up what's happening to this character or this timeline?
It's called
or these
Wikipedia.
stories?
So, in the back of the translated Sailor Moon manga, when you get to the end of the story, there's literally several pages that go back to other things that were mentioned, especially if it's something that they didn't translate or they're just trying to explain something that's happening or like an onomatopoeia. And then there's almost like a small definition there or like explanation as to why it's in there.
Right, but like for like cultural context.
It is, but like it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, since that's like it's not dealing with you know, issues from other things, you typically everyone just with the way manga's purchased, you're buying it from the beginning to the end. You're typically not
Right.
picking it up at like volume 10 and
No,
going
it's
from there. So they don't have to worry about that necessarily. But like the idea of that, of like not just maybe putting that like, you know, where you can find this in the back, like a little quick synopsis, like this is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's what happened. I mean,
Here's,
like,
like, this is what this is referring to.
right.
Yeah. I think they should do that.
I don't think they're going to do
I don't think they're going.
And
yeah,
here's the
it seems
problem.
And
like
then
they're
they'll do
going to.
QR codes that lead them to like Marvel Unlimited,
that's the-
and then you could just purchase it or like read it right then and there.
That's the thing that you should do. That's like the smartest thing to do. Is like, how about this? Instead of an
Do people
editor's
still
note,
use QR codes?
yeah, they
Yeah.
still do. What about this? Instead of an editor's note, there is just a QR code, like at the bottom, and you're like, what is he talking about? Scan. Oh, this issue I gotta buy.
Yeah.
You know what they should do? They should make a Marvel app, charge you $1 for it. You use that, it's like bloop, and it gives you like that Wikipedia like kind of definition right there, and then you just
That'd be cool. So then you're actually making money from it. It's not just like a thankless, horrible
And it's
task.
not, it's not you have like, I bought the QR code for a month.
Right.
yeah.
So
and
I have
you're-
access to it.
And
No,
you're not
you buy
like
it.
it's not like like the entire issue, but it's like just a like quick like, wait, what the hell happened? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I'm gonna grab this.
Because they did have that. Marvel had a thing called AR, augmented reality, where it's
Yeah.
like you'd look at the comic and then like on the page, in the digital and in the physicals,
Yeah.
there'd be like an AR logo on the page you're looking at,
Yeah,
and
you take out your thing and
yeah, and you'd see like the sketches or like the pencil work or something like that. But it's like it'd be better
the
if
Blu-ray
it's like
extras.
Yeah, but it'd be really cool if it's like, oh, there's this
actual
thing,
information
scan, and
that's
it's
useful.
information, yeah, or context, or better yet, and what we've talked about, which is like a link to more to
Yeah.
buy.
I think they should link you to a discounted copy of the book that they're referencing.
Because
Yeah.
like you already bought one.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you know this, they don't know the word discount.
I've never heard of that.
I know, but like it's perfect because
Even
like,
if they're
the
older, which
person
drives me nuts. 'Cause
you've only
didn't
sold the
wanna
one book.
buy that book.
Yeah.
But now they kind of want to buy it a little bit because you referenced it, but they're not going to pay the full price because
No.
like they don't care that much.
Right.
But maybe they care $1.
Or
and then
they
you're making
know-
something.
Especially if it's like a book that's at least a couple of months old.
Right.
Like
It
if
came
it's
out a little while ago anyway.
Especially because you know you're not going to make that money back anyway, so you might as well get
and
something
that
back.
person isn't going to buy the trade of that book, so you're not even losing out on that money.
Yeah.
Like they just want to know like that context for this issue.
And that's
and like here's the thing: what if they read that issue like because you gave them that discount, and then they're like, I do want to read more about this.
Right, I love this character now. Yeah.
Now you are selling maybe even more books.
Right? And just, especially if you establish it and have like a long trail of it, because it could just be a concentric like Mobius strip where they just fall down the rabbit
Wouldn't it
hole.
be great if you could fall down the rabbit hole of comics chained together like people do with Wikipedia all the time?
Marvel Limited is an app where you pay like a Netflix subscription fee, you get access to their backlog.
Yeah.
So it's like just make another revenue stream to lead to that thing you've already
Someone
done.
who doesn't want to pay the monthly fee, but they will pay a smaller fee for access to one thing
Yes.
that is relevant to
that
the
adds
thing
to
they're
their
reading.
collection.
I
more or
guess part of the trouble is that you also have to limit it. You have to make sure that you're not overflowing this stuff with like, would you like to know more? Would you like to know more? Would you like to know more?
one issue is just full of like 100 references.
Right. People will not like that.
They
No,
did that.
I think it would literally just be the like moments where it's like, okay, here's a weird character moment that it's like,
Yeah.
oh
That's
crap,
totally
if you didn't
natural
read this
if
other
you knew,
thing,
but
you're,
yeah.
you're not gonna get
Right.
this, and you need this.
But it's
context.
important to do it because that's what would happen if these two characters like
Right, and
encountered this
again,
scenario.
if you did want to do the thing where you were filling it up, you'd put it on that last page, like the manga, and be like, here are some things you might have missed in here, and if you want to know more about it, you can find it. Bam, 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 bam,
Right.
bam.
The
you
last
don't have
page
to.
thing I really like because it doesn't take you out of the story
Yeah,
while you're
and
reading.
that's another thing is
Yeah.
you don't want to interrupt the flow of the story.
What it typically does in the manga is it gives you the page number and like sometimes the image that it was in, and then you can go back and you can look and be like, oh, and you get the context then. I'm like, oh, okay.
We need like a catchy name for that last page that has like a letter or a logo that represents that page, so that all you see is like a check. You know what I mean? Like a little check mark or a Marvel logo or something
Right.
like that.
Well, maybe they should number pages again.
Well, they should number pages.
Well, I don't even know if they
They
don't
do in
anymore, but, like,
Comixology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but my point is like just you don't see like because the AR logo on those Marvel pages was annoying and stupid.
Yeah.
But
they should
like
just do footnotes. Just put a little number.
yeah, just a little number. Just like
And
well,
then
just
if I
to tell
care,
you,
I
if
can
you
go look
care,
it
I'll
up.
go
If I
check.
don't care, I'll just keep reading.
Yeah, but it's not distracting. It's not a big
Yeah.
logo. It's just a
And
little tick.
Footnotes are everywhere.
Yeah,
in
in
books.
everything, in your articles you're reading, in your books you're reading.
Yeah,
Because
like-
there's a border, and sometimes comics don't have that, and I think they should include it if they're going to do this.
Yeah, give you a little space at the bottom. We all know how footnotes work.
Yes.
It's an established thing.
If you're reading, you know what a footnote is.
Yeah.
right?
No, it's true.
And if you don't, good for you. You just learned one, and now you can use them in your everyday life. Like,
Yeah.
way to go. Like,
I don't know. Seems obvious.
to circle back around to the shared universe,
Yeah.
because I know we're solving this other issue, which
Right.
is cool.
It's tangential to the shared universe.
you're welcome.
But I understand too why people get frustrated with crossovers within a
Yeah.
shared universe, because it's like more than likely nothing serious is going to happen.
You mean within an intercompany crossover or a regular like Moon Knight meeting Spider-Man?
Yeah, Spider-Man going to the Fantastic Four, the
Yeah.
X-Men hanging out with whoever, you know what I mean? Like more than likely, if that character
like
has
a
a
gimmick.
book right now, if they
Yeah.
have a book,
Right.
they're probably going to be fine.
Yes.
So like, there's really no tension there.
Yeah.
But again, a good writer would not put a situation like that where like you wouldn't use a character like
But what
that
if
for
a
that
good
situation.
writer is given an impossible directive
I
to
will say-
organically work this totally random character into your story because we need to sell more of these books?
Yeah.
And that's where I think you were talking about the responsibility of the various parties. I think
Yeah.
one of the responsibilities is on the editors to not make ridiculous decisions that negatively impact good creators.
Yeah.
Yes.
They need to be able in a dialogue that says like, hey, can you make this work?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man, I really can't.
Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
take
But
that
it
down to the
doesn't-
other book.
Not
Yeah.
with where I am right now in my story, and
Right.
tonally it doesn't work. I think
Right.
I agree with that. I think the editor also needs to pay attention to if you are going to do that, if you are trying to push sales on a book, which I really haven't seen so much lately.
Yeah,
No,
that's
not
more
as
an
much
older
anymore.
thing.
But like, if you were going to do that, or you're like, oh, we really want to do all these like tie-ins or freaking whatever,
Yeah.
like pick them responsibly.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna have, if you want Deadpool to show up, he can show up in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He works
Well,
there.
or you can just do
Yes.
a series of Deadpool Spider-Man books.
Yeah.
That'll sell. We
He-
can just do
he
that.
can go hang out with the X-Men. He's not going to work with every character. I mean,
Yeah.
you probably could,
Yeah.
but like totally speaking, every book may not have room for him right now.
Right.
So you just kind of look at what's out there and go like, okay, he can go here, here, and here. Which books are selling the best?
Yeah.
These two. This is where it's going to be.
Exactly.
And maybe, I don't know, this might be crazy, let characters like not show up in events that are like completely destroying the thing that they're doing right now.
Right.
Like if Thor's having a really cool Thor story, and then you tell the creator of Thor, oh, you gotta make him do like this over here now.
Yeah.
Maybe like just don't do
Don't.
that.
Yeah.
He's got to come over to Battle World,
Right?
though.
Yeah.
No, that's-
and I know that's hard.
Everyone was in Battle World. Battle World. The whole world was changed.
Yeah.
He
No,
has no
just-
choice.
Using an example.
Yeah. Maybe like keep those to a minimum.
Right.
And maybe that's part of the problem is like maybe there's just too many of these interrupting things happening. It
Well, there are
seems
too
like
many
they're doing
events.
a lot, and it can be frustrating if you're trying to I just care about Thor. I love Thor, man. Why are they constantly like,
Shoving him elsewhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. Like that is
Yeah,
frustrating.
that
And
would
that
be.
seems like a lot of like problems caused by the shared universe.
Yeah.
It might just be a matter of like maybe just like tone down the sharing like a little bit.
You know what else is the issue, and I think it's like with both publishers are guilty of this. It's that they publish too many books.
We've
And
talked
as
about
a-
that before.
But because they publish too many books, there's too many opportunities for contradictions and
Yeah.
for oversaturation of characters, and so because of that, like people feel like the whole concept is flawed when
Yeah.
really it's just the greed that's flawed.
Well,
It's
then
not being executed
then it becomes
right.
a tapestry of weaving of like, how am I going to make all of this
Well,
work
and the
together?
reality is, like maybe 30 years ago, they were thinking like, oh, what an opportunity, or like maybe how am I going to make this work? Oh, what a shitty job I have. Now they just go, oh, who cares? Like the problem I have is like editors who are like, I want to achieve this thing because I think I'm creative, and I have a real problem with that. but I won't write it myself and put my name on it.
Right.
I'll make someone else do that. And like, that needs to stop. It's not going to, because like, that's literally like asking anyone in charge to not game the system for their own benefit, which is just it's unrealistic to expect. I mean,
Well-
like, I would want to expect that, but I don't live in a fictitious universe like Spider-Man, so it's not gonna happen.
It's kind of the difference between a manager and a director.
Right.
A manager should manage the people working underneath them and making sure that the work gets done.
That's what editors
a
do.
director, yes, and a director should be directing how the work gets done and the
Yeah.
direction that it takes.
Yeah, the director doesn't go like, I really think you should stock the friggin' peas like this. I think you'll move more peas that way. Like, what are you doing? Get out of here.
Yeah, we're on
Run the
carrots now.
store. Like, just run the store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you have a meeting with like a TV network to make a commercial today?
You're saying there needs to be like a creative hierarchy wherein like you got the guy at the top who's doing like general
management.
guidance, but
Yeah.
not like micromanaging.
Right.
And then like a lower level editors that are more in the weeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There just needs to be a clearer delineation of responsibilities and an adherence to those restrictions so they can actually do their jobs.
Right. And it's funny, DC kind of did that recently, sort of. I'm not saying they did it successfully, but when you think about the mandate of the year of the villain.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Came up from here,
Right.
and like I just don't know if like the editors, if there were
Implemented
enough
them
of them, or
properly?
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's up to
I
everyone
will
else
say
to
that
make
like
that
the
choice.
people who played with that, like people who participated in Year of the Villain,
Yeah.
were either told to or wanted to.
Yeah. And the wanted to, great.
Yep.
Told to, hopefully you
Well,
figured it out.
You could tell who were told to because they just did their book and then at the end they just looked up in the sky and went, "Oh crap, I'm in the Year of the Villain." Like,
Oh no, it's the year of the villain.
oh
What am I
no.
gonna do?
Yeah, literally they didn't do anything.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's annoying.
Yes.
It's like, well, then maybe don't do that. Maybe just let those. If you can't get the writer to like do it organically,
Yeah,
maybe
just-
just like
just don't do it.
Just
maybe
don't.
just tell them like, you know what? I got your submission. Let's just never mind.
Right.
And I'll be like, thank you.
Fine.
Right, but then that teaches them like if they do that,
Yeah.
then they don't
Yeah,
have
and
to
then
participate.
Well,
no
and
one
then
has
that
to do-
writer will get fired.
Well, and that's the
the
thing is that,
if you can't make
if you
it
don't
work,
play
you get
ball,
fired.
if you don't play ball, you're not going to get like the benefits of ball playing.
So there has to be like, it becomes sort of a dance of like making sure that you're not demanding too much of your writers, and that your writers aren't just saying that's too hard. I
Yeah.
can't
Right.
do it.
Well, yeah. Eventually, if you cry wolf enough, like you're gonna get eaten by a wolf, or you're gonna get fired.
Just as a side note, because we never talk about DC, we keep talking about Marvel.
Yeah. Well, because I think Marvel started out with a shared universe and like,
Yeah,
executed it really
and
well.
also like I think they do it well, and I'm not saying DC doesn't do
No,
it
they
well.
do
I
well.
think DC's biggest problem is the Justice League having pretty much the same people all the time, and those people also having books. You know what I mean? Like you've got like the Justice League with like Scott at the time of this filming, Scott Snyder's Justice League is just wrapped up.
Yep.
Wonder Woman is on that team.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman's also in her own book. Wonder Woman's also on Justice League Dark.
Right.
And I'm like, when are any of these happening?
Yeah.
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 It's a natural question.
Right.
And if you don't answer it, it is something's missing.
Right.
Right.
But at the same time, like you don't necessarily have to answer every question. Like
No.
just because you have this like removed veil between company and fan doesn't mean that you are obligated to answer every single one of their questions. Like
No, that's fair, but I think that when you have a story like with Justice League Dark, which spun out of DC Metal, which led right into Justice League, I think you need to kind of square
need to
that
make that
circle
work.
as to when is this happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Like-
then you have the other problem of like you had the Justice League book that didn't have those characters for the longest time, and it just sold really bad, and those
I
characters weren't
understand that,
interesting.
but like then just say like either like Justice League Dark is happening at another time.
They used to
It's-
do that too. They used to
Yeah.
be like, this happened. This took place before this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how does that? But what happened before that issue? And it's like,
And
shut
I
up.
get it because like then the person writing Justice League is like, well then you know that person doesn't die.
Right,
And
right.
it's like
You've removed the
I
tension to that
understand
story.
that, but it's like.
What do you want?
But like, how the hell is Wonder Woman fighting Perpetua and Cersei
Right.
and having the power of Hecate, and it's not
Yeah.
even
When does she have the
like
time to do
there's
all
like these
this?
really like
Especially when you're majorly changing characters, like granting them additional powers
Yeah.
or abilities.
that
like,
they could have used really like expertly
it's
against
just
Perpetua.
a natural question.
Yeah.
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 The other thing, I think the reason why it seems like we're picking on DC as much is because DC constantly reboots their universe without making the plans that we're talking about.
Right.
Or
Yep.
seemingly. Let's say they are doing it. Well, then you're doing it poorly
Right.
because it doesn't
no one
look
knows what
like
the hell's happening.
Nobody knows what's happening, and no one knows that you're actually making the effort.
Right.
And
it seems like chaos.
Yeah.
So you're not doing a good job if it's not chaos.
Yeah.
But I think there are some books that they do
Yeah.
a good job with in terms of that like shared continuity
Yes.
or that shared universe. So I think that there are some places where they do excel at it, and then there are some other things where it's just like, look, I know these characters are going to sell books, and who cares? And
Right.
it's like sometimes it does. Like it does matter, like
Well, and the
especially
audience
when the storylines seemingly could intertwine and they're
Or should, like,
Yeah.
just by virtue of them being in the shared universe.
Yeah.
But like, there are also characters that are so big you take it for granted. Where it's like Batman. Yeah, I know, he's in every book, and I'm not even gonna try. And we're all like signing that social contract to accept that Batman is gonna be in every book, and his superpower is that he never sleeps, and he never has to go to the bathroom.
He has a time
And he has a
turner.
time. Yeah, he has a time turner. He literally, like, in 1 week, he lives 6 months. And it's like, that's all. I can't argue.
Dark
that.
Knight Returns is really not that far in the future.
No, he's got city miles, Gotham miles. If you will.
So where is Hogwarts in the DC universe?
Oh, it's over with Gotham Academy.
It is.
Constantine knows
Where
right?
it is.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah,
Warner
it's all the
Brothers.
same. It's all the same people.
That's right. Yeah.
I wonder if Zatanna went there.
That's coming.
Oh, she couldn't have. She's not English.
No.
Aww. But Constantine could have. He got kicked out.
Yeah. Constantine was smoking in the boys' room, and they kicked him out.
Where's that crossover then?
Constantine and friggin' Harry Potter.
Yeah.
The dark years.
DC's like, oh my god, what?
From DC, new. No one ever mentioned this before.
And I think the reason why I like them so much is because it's more like real life. Like, because we are all the protagonists of our own story, and we do have crossovers.
We are affected
We
by
are affected
the
by
things
the
around us.
Yeah,
And
and-
our status quo changes.
Right, exactly. And maybe they're upended by things that are out of our control or even without outside our sphere of influence.
Yeah, there's
A-
wars.
and if you
there's-
die in your story, you're dead in mine too.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be separate things inside
yeah.
that universe. Be
Absolutely.
like, all right, this is a variant. This is a.
This is, an Elseworld story, a
An
what
else-
if book.
I
Or
don't hang out with
something
Ben
else.
all the
Tangent.
time. There are times when I just don't
Well,
even
that's the
see Ben
Ethan
for-
book.
Yeah,
That- yeah.
But sometimes I want to hang out with Ben.
Or
And
there could be a book where it's like, what if Ethan went to Florida and lived there instead?
Yeah.
And was an alligator farmer.
Yeah.
like, it's like, where is she gonna go?
don't know.
With
In
me being in
Florida.
Florida.
Alligator
Farm
farmer.
alligator.
Alligator farmer. I would. Yeah, that's not too bad. I go do that for a year. No, I'll come back 5 years later, and I'll have had all kinds.
but that's
of
not outside
adventures I won't
continuity,
tell
man.
you
No,
about.
No, but it should be.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
make it
but
outside.
if we have it happened in the last 5 years, it can be in continuity.
That's true.
Oh,
yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Hey.
But if
Yeah.
it was outside of continuity, then we'd have like all the rest of us would show up outside of continuity in that book and like a different.
The Florida versions of ourselves.
Yeah, it wouldn't quite line up the way you think. it would.
Sorry,
different.
Florida Ben doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Florida Ben died of meth a long time ago.
Florida Ben tried to eat someone's face off.
Florida Ben got eaten by one of Ethan's alligators.
I want the Florida Ben action figure.
Yeah.
Yes!
Florida Ben who's on bath
What
salts.
does Florida Ben look like? I don't know.
Sunglasses and like a Hawaiian shirt.
Definitely Bermuda shorts.
Oh yes.
Socks. and
Florida
sandals.
Ben sucks.
And his hair
don't
is
like
probably
Florida
like
Ben.
frosted up top and
Oh,
like kind of slick.
Florida Ben is Guy Fieri.
And Ben's like, and Florida Ben's really tan.
Yeah, he's very tan.
Yep.
He's like,
Like
too tan.
too-
He's like too
tan.
tan. Where you're like, how are you this tan?
Right, like you use tanning beds, but you're also in Florida. And you work on a boat.
Sorry to any of our
Like,
Florida
what
fans.
are you doing?
That's not what I want this episode to come out with.
No, that's
That's the
it.
takeaway here.
That is Florida Ben is officially the
Florida
champion.
Ben is
Al-
happening.
That is an alternate reality Ben. That
Yep.
is not our Ben. That's another Ben.
Yeah.
But we could do a crossover one time.
Yeah, he can come into our universe.
Yeah,
and
that's a
hang
Ben
out
from the
with us.
multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're like, I don't like this.
Oh,
Ben.
this Ben has to go.
If we kill this Ben, this doesn't do anything to our Ben.
No.
Nope.
it's a whole separate
Nope. So
Ben.
it's a totally different Ben.
All right. We're
It's gonna
killing.
scar this Ben.
We're
now.
killing Florida Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. That Ben.
What are we doing? Are we killing Florida Ben?
Oh, hey. It's real Ben. Or Ben Prime.
See, that's intra-company.
Anyway.
I don't envy anyone doing a shared universe.
No.
Right.
But I
Seems like a lot of
appreciate
work.
it what you do if you do it right.
Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate what you do.
Treat it with
and
respect,
Please
please.
do it right. Please
Yeah.
at least approach it
Try.
from that perspective.
Yeah, maybe don't just like etch a sketch, get angry with it.
Yeah. Oh, this isn't working. Ah. I mean, like.
Or DC, that's what we do. Crisis.
Crisis.
Oh, it's a mess crisis.
Oops.
Oh, everyone's confused. Crisis.
Like, why don't you just fix it?
And maybe stop having things that are crises that don't change the universe and confuse us.
They should have a crisis where the crisis won't come.
Like they're like everyone wants one. And
Please,
this won't
please,
happen.
They're all old. Like,
no, I'm not doing it this time. But at the same time, I have a problem with Marvel books. Like the Spider-Man thing. When you have way too many books
too
coming
many
out,
titles of the same character.
too many titles of the same character, when it's like you have too much
I
going
agree
on,
with that.
it's not possible for this person to be doing all of this.
It can work if you're not giving him like new powers or killing his aunt or killing like if you're not doing anything like major like life altering, I can see it working. It's like, oh, it could have happened before, it could have happened after, it doesn't matter. But if you're doing that crazy stuff, then it's a real problem.
Well, there's a book doing that now that's like really clever, where it's like Adventures of Spider-Man in between these other years, and so like they really can't do anything fundamentally crazy, but like they can take Spider-Man on fun adventures in those time frames.
They can explore
and
his
expand
character a
that
little bit.
past, because it's written by Peter David, who was writing Spider-Man back then anyway, and it's like filling in gaps, or at the very least expanding on ideas from there, and doing things that they clearly like didn't know. Like, it's symbiote Spider-Man, so it's Spider-Man when he had the symbiote, but they didn't know what they were going to do with that symbiote 30 years later. So they're like, oh, we can play with some of those ideas now.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of those instances of like a constraint where, like, it's like, all right, we want to do another Spider-Man book.
You know what's funny
Spider-Man
though?
can't do all these things.
But they used Peter David, who has been writing comics for like 40 years.
Yeah.
So he knows how to like self-regulate.
Yeah.
And he wrote those previous stories, so he doesn't want to screw them up either.
Yep.
So he has a vested interest and the history to be able to like self-edit more or less, even if the editors are asleep at the wheel. Because that's the thing, like, the one thing I will say that dings Marvel is that like either they don't have enough editors, or those editors aren't being paid enough because they're not doing their job nearly as much as they should be. And like, so things are happening and they're just like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, and it's true, and you see that a lot with Doctor Strange. Like, you know.
Yeah, they're just like, who cares?
Things were fluctuating with his costumes.
You're just lucky to
like,
have one.
Yeah, and it's like, but I mean, when he would show up in other books, it was like.
Oh yeah, no, they were just like,
They're like, who cares? And it was like, I mean, like, I get it. He's not a big seller for you
Right.
guys, and I get you're probably not paying attention too much to it.
Yeah, but
it's
if you play fast and loose with that character, his main book that you are making money off of is going to diminish because they know that it doesn't impact anything.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it, respect it.
Right.
And respect the fans of it. If you're not going to, then don't even put it out.
Yes. Like, don't put out a book about Booster Gold if you're just going to ruin him. Like, just make him a supporting character in another book, or don't use him at all.
Yeah.
But, like, have respect for the universe you own. You may not have favorite characters, but you must know that other people do, and they do care about their journeys. And if you're like, I would love to see them die or get theirs, but like I also am an editor and I'm not really influencing story right now, then just don't. Or talk to a writer and be like, hey, do you have any ideas that might involve this character being like ruined? Like. But don't force them to do that, and just remember that people care about these characters, and that they, you're in charge of a whole universe. Like, there are going to be fans.
The weight
of
of
those
responsibility is great.
Yeah. And, they have great power.
I know we're trying to like wrap this up, but I do want to mention, like, when you look at like DC back when what was it? Action was coming out like every 2 weeks. Was it Action Comics, or was it another book that led up to Green Flame with the Neil Gaiman story? That Neil Gaiman was supposed to write this like wrap up to like what was going on there, so they could move on to the next thing, and they canceled the whole thing just because of one continuity thing.
Yes.
Instead of altering it,
because they weren't supposed to. Batman and Superman weren't supposed to know each other.
Yeah,
or
they
something?
didn't.
Oh no, it was Green Lantern and
Superman
couldn't know each other's identities.
Yeah, they like nobody knew who Superman was, and it was like, so they're like, we can't do this. Sorry, moving on.
Yeah.
Which is like crazy to think about that now. That like they would be like, oh no, we can't do that because of this one.
Let me just tell Neil Gaiman no.
I know, and I'm like, it's like, well, I mean, like he wasn't quite as.
But he was still Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
So maybe just make it a different, like, put it outside of the continuity.
Which they did. They did
Which is what they
inevitably,
did,
but like years later when someone remembered it and found it. But I'm like, that's just so crazy to think about that now when people are being so
They were
fast and
so
loose.
beholden to their universe.
Yeah.
We haven't answered any questions, but it's all rhetorical anyway.
Yeah.
But I think the idea here is
No,
like
we have.
We're not the definitive experts.
We all have our
on this.
opinions.
That's true.
It's a thought exercise.
Yeah.
Yes. So have one of your own and let us know in the comments down below. What's your favorite shared universe? I just love to see like how many people like one over the other.
In comics.
And in comics, please, yeah.
Western comics.
Yeah, in Western comics. A lot of stipulation, a lot of asterisks, but trust me. We have 4 examples up here on this show, and we're looking forward to seeing them. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time with another episode of Comic Line. I'm Sal.
I'm Ethan.
I'm Ben.
Oh, that's Tiffany.
So long.